This isn't just a clip, it's the most powerful moment ever caught live on daytime TV. What happens when one of Hollywood's most devoted Christian actors sits across from television's most skeptical host and drops a bombshell that leaves everyone speechless? The answer is a moment so shocking, so unexpected, that it forever changed how America views faith on television. Jonathan Roumie, the man who brings Jesus Christ to life in the hit series The Chosen, was supposed to have a simple promotional interview on The View. But when Joy Behar pushed him about the fantasy of his religious beliefs, Roumie revealed something that no one saw coming, a secret so profound, so life-changing, that it sent shockwaves through the studio and left Joy Behar scrambling to end the interview before millions of viewers witnessed what happened next. This isn't just another celebrity disagreement. This is the story of a divine encounter that was captured on live television, and what you're about to discover will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about faith, fame, and the power of truth. But what Roumie revealed in those final moments before the cameras cut away has never been fully told until now, and the truth behind Joy's desperate attempt to silence him will shock you to your core. If even one sentence in this story stirs your soul, I dare you to keep watching till the very end, because the moment Joy Behar tries to silence faith is the moment millions woke up. Before we dive into this incredible story that will challenge everything you believe about faith and television, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because stories like this are exactly why mainstream media doesn't want independent creators telling the truth. Let me know in the comments what you think really happened when Jonathan Roumie looked directly into Joy Behar's eyes and shared something so powerful that it left her speechless for the first time in her career. Was it a genuine spiritual experience, or was there something even deeper going on behind the scenes that The View's producers desperately tried to cover up? Trust me, this story has layers that will blow your mind, and what you're about to discover about the hidden tension between Hollywood's faithful and the entertainment industry's power players will change how you see celebrity interviews forever. But here's what the mainstream media won't tell you about what happened after the cameras stopped rolling and why this moment became the most controversial interview in daytime television history. And if you're someone who still believes faith has a place in our culture, go ahead and type "I believe" in the comments. Let's see how many still stand for truth. The View studio hummed with its typical morning energy as production assistants made final adjustments to lighting and sound equipment. Jonathan Roumie sat quietly in the guest chair, his hands folded peacefully in his lap, radiating the same calm presence that had made his portrayal of Jesus so compelling to millions of viewers worldwide. There was something different about him that morning, a quiet intensity in his eyes, as if he was carrying a message that went far beyond promoting his hit series, The Chosen. Across the curved desk, Joy Behar reviewed her notes with the confident air of someone who had conducted thousands of interviews, completely unaware that she was about to face something that would test every belief she held about faith, reality, and the power of spiritual truth. The other hosts chatted casually among themselves, discussing weekend plans and upcoming segments, while cameramen adjusted their angles and sound technicians checked levels one final time. The studio audience, mostly middle-aged women who had won tickets through online contests, settled into their seats with the excited anticipation of seeing their favorite daytime personalities up close. None of them could have predicted that they were about to witness a moment that would divide the nation and spark debates in churches, coffee shops, and living rooms across America for months to come. But what the producers didn't know was that Roumie had been praying all morning for the courage to share something that could either inspire millions or destroy his career forever. The cameras rolled and Joy Behar flashed her signature smile, leaning forward with the practiced warmth that had made her a daytime television staple for decades. "Good morning, Jonathan. Welcome back to The View. It's always a pleasure to have you here," she said, her voice carrying that familiar blend of enthusiasm and slight skepticism that her fans had come to expect. "Good morning, Joy. Thank you for having me. Roumie replied, his voice soft but steady, carrying an undercurrent of something deeper that only the most perceptive viewers might notice. So, let's talk about The Chosen. It's become this incredible phenomenon. Season 4 just wrapped, and the fan response has been absolutely overwhelming. What's it like playing the most famous figure in human history? Joy's question seemed innocent enough, but there was already a subtle edge to her tone, as if she was testing the waters for something more controversial. Roumie's face lit up with genuine passion as he spoke about the series and its impact on viewers worldwide, sharing heartwarming stories of how the show had touched lives and brought families together. The conversation flowed naturally, with Joy asking about the production challenges, the international cast, and the series' unique funding model through crowdfunding. But those watching closely could see something in Joy's body language. The way she tapped her pen impatiently when Roumie spoke about the spiritual preparation he underwent for each scene, the slight tightening around her eyes when he mentioned prayer and meditation as part of his creative process. What Joy didn't realize was that every question she asked was leading Roumie closer to revealing the experience that would change everything, and her growing discomfort with his sincere faith was about to trigger something she never saw coming. The first crack in the pleasant facade appeared when Joy shifted in her chair and leaned back slightly, her journalist instincts sensing an opportunity to dig deeper into territory that made her more comfortable: skepticism. "Now, Jonathan, I have to ask," she said with a slight laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes, "when you're playing Jesus, do you ever worry about, mixing fantasy with reality? I mean, for someone who's so deeply religious, how do you separate the character from your own beliefs?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Roumie's expression grew more thoughtful, his hands clasping together as he considered his response. "That's an interesting way to phrase it, Joy," he said carefully, his voice maintaining its gentle tone despite the underlying tension. "I wouldn't call my faith a fantasy. For me, preparing for this role has actually deepened my relationship with Christ in ways I never expected." Joy's eyebrows rose slightly, and she exchanged a quick glance with Whoopi Goldberg, who was watching the exchange with growing interest. "But surely you understand that not everyone shares those beliefs," Joy pressed, her voice taking on a more condescending tone. "When you're portraying someone that, let's face it, many people see as a historical figure rather than a divine being, don't you think there's a responsibility to maintain some objectivity?" The studio audience remained quiet, but the tension was becoming palpable. Roumie's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and those who knew him well could see that Joy was venturing into territory that touched the very core of his identity. What Joy didn't realize in this right here, this is where the interview stopped being safe. This is where hearts began to beat faster, because something spiritual was about to erupt on national TV. Was that her casual dismissal of his faith as fantasy had just awakened something in Roumie that would soon force her to confront truths she had spent her entire career trying to avoid. Joy sensed she had struck a nerve and decided to push further, her liberal worldview clashing with what she perceived as outdated religious thinking. "Look, Jonathan, I respect that you're a method actor, but let's be honest here," she said, her voice gaining confidence as she leaned forward aggressively. "In 2024, don't you think it's a bit concerning when actors start believing they're actually channeling divine figures? I mean, where do we draw the line between performance and delusion?" The word delusion hit the studio like a lightning bolt, and even the other hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Roumie's peaceful demeanor remained intact, but there was now a fire burning behind his eyes that hadn't been there moments before. "Joy, I think you're misunderstanding something fundamental about faith," he replied, his voice steady but carrying a new intensity that made everyone in the studio lean forward. "This isn't about method acting or performance. This is about a relationship with Christ that has transformed my life in ways that go far beyond any role I could ever play." Joy rolled her eyes in a gesture that was both dismissive and deeply insulting to anyone watching who shared Roumie's beliefs. "Oh, come on, Jonathan. You're an intelligent man. Surely you can separate ancient mythology from modern reality. These stories were written thousands of years ago by people who didn't understand science, psychology, or how the world actually works." The studio audience began to murmur quietly, sensing that this was no longer a typical celebrity interview, but something much more significant. Backstage, producers were frantically debating whether to cut to commercial, but the raw authenticity of the moment was too compelling to interrupt. But what happened next would prove that Joy had gravely underestimated the man sitting across from her, and her attack on his deepest beliefs was about to backfire in ways that would haunt her career forever. The moment that would change everything came when Joy, emboldened by what she perceived as her intellectual superiority, decided to deliver what she thought would be the final blow to end this religious nonsense, once and for all. "Jonathan, let me ask you something directly," she said, her voice dripping with condescension as she leaned back in her chair with a smug smile. "Have you ever actually seen Jesus? I mean, really seen him, not in some dream or meditation or whatever actors do to get into character. Because if you're going to sit here and tell millions of viewers that this is all real, then surely you must have some actual evidence, right?" The question was meant to embarrass him, to expose what Joy believed was the foolishness of genuine faith in front of a national audience. But instead of the stammering, defensive response she expected, something extraordinary happened. Roumie became completely still, his eyes closing for just a moment, as if he was accessing a memory so profound that it required his full attention. When he opened his eyes and looked directly at Joy, there was something in his gaze that made her unconsciously lean back in her chair. "Yes, Joy, if that moment shook something inside you, stay right here." Because what he said next left every person in that room visibly trembling, and it was never aired again. He said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to fill the entire studio. "I have seen Jesus. Not in a dream, not in meditation, not as part of my preparation for this role. I have seen him as clearly as I'm seeing you right now." The studio fell into a silence so complete that the only sound was the quiet hum of the cameras. Joy's mouth opened slightly, her prepared follow-up questions completely forgotten as she stared at a man who had just claimed something that challenged every assumption she had about reality, faith, and the nature of truth itself. But what Roumie revealed next about the circumstances of that encounter would shake Joy to her very core and force her to make a decision that would define her legacy forever. Joy's recovery from the shock was swift and brutal, her years of combative television training kicking in as she launched into what could only be described as an all-out assault on Roumie's sanity. "Oh, please," she said with a harsh laugh that echoed through the stunned studio. "You cannot seriously expect rational people to believe that you've had some kind of personal meeting with a figure from ancient history. This is exactly the kind of dangerous thinking that..." But Roumie cut her off with a gentle but firm voice that somehow commanded more authority than her shouting ever could. "Joy, 3 years ago, I was going through the darkest period of my life. My father had just passed away, I was struggling financially, and I was questioning everything about my purpose and faith. I was alone in my apartment at 3 a.m., crying and asking God why everything felt so hopeless." His voice grew stronger as he continued, completely ignoring Joy's attempts to interrupt. "That's when he appeared to me, not as the actor's interpretation I portray on screen, but as a presence so real, so filled with love and peace, that every doubt I had ever carried simply vanished. He didn't speak in words, Joy. He spoke directly to my heart, and he told me that my pain had a purpose, that my struggles would help me bring his story to millions of people who needed hope. Joy's face flushed red with a mixture of embarrassment and rage. This is absolutely ridiculous. You're describing a hallucination brought on by grief and stress, not some divine encounter. And frankly, it's irresponsible for you to share these delusions on national television where vulnerable people might. Vulnerable people? Roumie's voice carried a new edge now, his Christ-like patience finally showing signs of strain. Joy, you sit here every day spreading your own beliefs, your own worldview, your own interpretation of reality. But when someone shares an experience that doesn't fit your narrow definition of what's possible, suddenly they're delusional and dangerous. The battle lines were now drawn, and what happened next would expose the deep spiritual divide that had been simmering beneath the surface of American culture for decades. The moment that would seal Joy's fate and create a viral sensation that would dominate social media for weeks came when she made the critical error of pushing too far beyond the boundaries of basic human decency. Rising from her chair with theatrical indignation, she pointed directly at Roumie and declared, "You know what? I've had enough of this religious fantasy nonsense. You're either lying to promote your show, or you genuinely need professional psychiatric help. Either way, I will not sit here and allow you to spread these harmful delusions to our audience." The words hung in the air like a curse, and the entire studio seemed to hold its breath as they waited for Roumie's response. But instead of anger or defensiveness, something extraordinary happened. Roumie stood up slowly, his face radiating a peace so profound that it seemed to transform the very atmosphere of the room. "Joy," he said softly, his voice carrying a compassion that made her unconscious step backward. "I forgive you for those words, because I understand that your anger isn't really directed at me. It's directed at a God you've spent your whole life running from." The spiritual authority in his voice was undeniable, and even the most skeptical viewers could feel something powerful happening in that moment. "You mock faith because you're terrified of what it might mean if people like me are telling the truth. If you've ever felt mocked for your beliefs, you're not alone. Hit subscribe right now because this isn't just a video. This is the story of standing tall when the world tries to laugh you down. You attack hope because you've lost yours somewhere along the way. But joy, it's not too late. Even now, even after everything you've said, that same love I experienced is available to you." Joy's face went white, her hands trembling as she realized that somehow, impossibly, this man had just seen straight through to the deepest fears and regrets of her soul. Without another word, Roumie calmly removed his microphone, placed it gently on the desk, and walked toward the studio exit with a dignity that made his departure feel less like a retreat and more like a benediction. As the studio doors closed behind him, thousands watching felt something change, like they'd just seen what it really means to carry light into darkness. Joy stood frozen in place, knowing that in trying to destroy his credibility, she had instead revealed something about herself that she had spent decades trying to hide. What did you think of that incredible confrontation that left Joy Behar speechless and exposed the deep spiritual battle happening in our culture today? Did Jonathan Roumie go too far by sharing his divine encounter on live television, or was Joy completely out of line for attacking his sincere faith and calling him delusional? The aftermath of this interview sent shockwaves through social media, with millions of people taking sides and sharing their own spiritual experiences that they had never dared to speak about publicly before. Some viewers called Roumie a modern-day prophet who had the courage to stand up for truth in the face of Hollywood's anti-faith agenda, while others supported Joy's skeptical approach and questioned whether such personal religious testimonies belonged on mainstream television. But here's what's really fascinating. In the weeks following this explosive interview, something unexpected happened that the mainstream media tried desperately to ignore. Thousands of people began reaching out to the Chosen production team, sharing their own stories of divine encounters and spiritual experiences that Roumie's courage had inspired them to finally acknowledge. The interview had done something that no one anticipated. It had given permission for ordinary people to speak openly about the extraordinary spiritual moments in their own lives. Drop your thoughts in the comments below about whether you believe Roumie's testimony about seeing Jesus. And make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because stories like this reveal the truth that powerful forces in entertainment and media don't want you to hear. And if your heart felt even 1% braver after watching this, hit subscribe and share this video because truth like this deserves to rise. And if you think this story was incredible, wait until you discover what happened to Joy Behar's career after this interview aired and why The View's producers have tried to scrub this footage from the internet. That story will blow your mind even more.